A dashcam is mounted for one reason: to record traffic, fender benders, near misses, insurance disputes. It doesn't know what it's about to catch. It just runs, frame after frame, indifferent to what passes in front of the lens. Sometimes what passes is a routine traffic stop that turns fatal in seconds. Sometimes it's the sky itself, splitting open over a quiet Russian morning. Sometimes it's an airliner falling out of the sky toward the road ahead, or a night that turns to daylight when a warehouse full of chemicals lets go, or a wall of wind that swallows a highway whole. None of this is staged. None of it is fiction. It exists because a camera happened to be rolling when everything went wrong, and it kept rolling after. Here are 5 of the most disturbing dashcam encounters ever recorded. It is January 12, 1998, on a rural stretch of road in Lawrence County, Georgia, not far from the town of Dublin, and Deputy Kyle Dinkeller is 22 years old. He's married, with a young daughter at home and another child on the way. He's working alone when a pickup truck comes past him at close to 100 miles an hour in the middle of the afternoon. He pulls it over. The dashcam mounted in his patrol car starts recording the way it always does on a traffic stop, pointed straight ahead at the truck and the empty road, catching everything from the first second. The driver is Andrew Brannon, 49 years old, a decorated Vietnam veteran later described as suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He steps out of the truck almost immediately, and from the first moment something is wrong. He paces, he waves his arms, he dances in the road, jerking and taunting, ignoring the deputy's instructions to stand still and keep his hands where they can be seen. At one point he shouts that he is a Vietnam combat veteran. At another, he rushes toward the patrol car, then backs off. The standoff stretches on for several tense minutes, the deputy trying to hold a man who won't be held. Dinkeller's voice stays level for as long as it can, asking him again and again to calm down, to stop, to take his hands out of his pockets. Then Brannon turns, walks back to his truck, reaches inside, and comes out with a rifle. What the dash cam records next is the reason the tape became one of the most studied pieces of police footage in the country. Brannon raises the weapon, an M1 carbine, and opens fire. Dinkeller returns fire from behind his open car door. The two men trade rounds across the space between the vehicles, and on the audio you can hear the deputy shouting, his voice climbing, ordering Brannon to stop even as the shots keep coming. Dinkeller is hit and hit again. By the time the shooting stops, he has been struck by numerous rounds, in the arms, the legs, the chest. Brannon walks closer and fires a final time before getting back in his truck and driving away, leaving the deputy dying in the road with his own camera still running. For a stretch after that, the dashcam records nothing but the aftermath, the empty road, the settling quiet. The deputy down beside his car where backup and paramedics will find him minutes later. He doesn't survive. He dies at 22 on a routine stop for speeding in front of a camera that recorded every second of it and had no way to intervene. Brannon didn't get far. He was arrested the next day. At trial, the dash cam footage became the center of the case, the jury watching the same tape that would later be shown in police academies across the country. He was convicted of murder in 2000 and sentenced to death. After years of appeals, he was executed by lethal injection in January of 2015, 17 years almost to the day after the stop. What makes the Dinkeller tape different from most disturbing footage is what it became afterward. It stopped being just evidence. It turned into a teaching tool, shown to new officers as a lesson in how fast an ordinary stop can go wrong and how a small hesitation can cost everything. A young deputy's last minutes played on a loop in training rooms so that the people watching might live through the thing he didn't. The camera couldn't save him. It could only make sure no one who came after got to pretend it doesn't happen. It is February 15th, 2013, in Chelyabinsk Oblast, Russia, and the morning commute looks like any other. Gray winter light, snow packed along the roadsides, cars moving through intersections at the pace of any ordinary Friday. Dashcams are running in dozens of vehicles across the region, the way they run in most Russian cars, mounted for reasons that have nothing to do with what's about to happen. At 9:20 in the morning, the sky turns white, A fireball crosses the horizon, brighter than the sun itself, and it happens fast enough that drivers barely have time to react before it's already overhead. Some of them flinch, some slow down, some just keep driving, glancing up through the windshield at a light with no clear source. Because so many cameras happen to be rolling at once, the object gets captured from dozens of angles at the same moment. A single event recorded from every direction across an entire region. It was the first time in history a meteor of this scale was documented this widely, almost entirely by the small cameras bolted to car windshields. What crossed that sky was an object roughly 20 meters wide, entering the atmosphere at close to 19 kilometers per second. It didn't hit the ground. It didn't need to. High in the air, it broke apart in an airburst that released energy estimated at somewhere between 400 and 500 kilotons, 20 to 30 times the energy of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. A blast built entirely from speed and mass with no impact required. For a few seconds, it glowed some 30 times brighter than the sun, bright enough to cast hard shadows and burn the skin of people standing under it. Then comes the part the dashcams weren't ready for. After the flash, nothing. Just the glow fading, the smoke trail hanging in the air. Drivers still processing what they'd just seen. For close to 2 minutes, nothing happens at all. Then the shockwave arrives, and dashcam audio across the region catches it the same way. A sudden crack, followed by glass breaking, car alarms going off, doors buckling. The blast wave rolls across 6 cities, blowing windows in on people who had walked toward them minutes earlier, drawn to the glass by the light, with no idea a second wave was still coming. Close to 1,500 people were hurt, and almost all of them by glass. Windows in offices, schools, and apartment blocks shattered inward by a wave that arrived long after the flash that caused it had faded from the sky. No one died from the meteor itself, not directly. The injuries came from what the blast did to buildings, not from the object that caused it. Fragments of the object rained down across the region, and the largest surviving piece, a chunk of stony meteorite weighing several hundred kilograms, punched a hole through the ice of a frozen lake called Chelyabinsk. Divers pulled it from the lake bed months later, in October of that year. A scorched black rock hauled up and weighed in front of cameras, the physical remainder of the thing every dashcam had caught streaking overhead. There's no perpetrator in this case. No officer, no driver, no name to attach blame to. Just a rock from space and a region that happened to be under it when it came apart. And maybe that's what makes it the most staggering entry on this list. Nothing human decided anything, and it still ended up studied by NASA and space agencies around the world. Reconstructed frame by frame from the same dashcams that were only ever meant to catch fender benders and near misses on an ordinary commute. Every other case here starts with one person, one decision, one vehicle. This one starts with an entire sky turning against an entire region. No warning, no target, nothing to brace for until it was already happening. The scale is different. The camera's job isn't. It just kept recording, the same as it would have on any other gray Friday morning. And instead it caught something closer to a cosmic accident than anything a person could have caused or stopped. It is February 4th, 2015. In Taipei, Taiwan, and TransAsia Airways Flight 235 has just lifted off from Songshan Airport, bound for the outlying island of Kinmen. On board are 58 people, 53 passengers, and 5 crew. The aircraft is a brand new ATR-72, a twin-engine turboprop that had been in service only a matter of months. It's a short domestic hop, the kind of flight the crew has run countless times, climbing out over a city crossed by elevated expressways in the Keelung River. About 2 minutes after takeoff, something goes wrong with one of the engines. What the investigation later established is that one engine lost power, and in responding to it, the crew shut down the other one, the engine that was still working. In the space of a few seconds, a fully functional airliner became a glider with no thrust at all, banking hard to the left, dropping fast over a crowded stretch of Taipei with nowhere to land. On the elevated Huandong Viaduct below, traffic is moving the way it always does, and the dash cams in several of those cars are running. What they capture is one of the most jarring pieces of footage ever recorded from a car. An airliner appearing in the frame, banked almost completely onto its side, wing pointed nearly straight down, filling the windshield as it comes across the road. The plane's left wing clips the top of a taxi traveling on the viaduct, injuring the people inside, then strikes the edge of the bridge itself before the aircraft rolls into the river below. The footage is only a few seconds long, but it's unbearable to watch precisely because of how clear it is. There's no shake, no distance, no ambiguity. The plane is right there, low enough to read the markings, moving in a way no aircraft is ever supposed to move, and then it's gone over the guardrail and into the water. Drivers who were simply commuting became, without warning, the closest witnesses to a disaster unfolding a few feet in front of them. The crash killed 43 of the 58 people on board. 15 survived, pulled from the half-submerged wreckage in the river by rescuers who waded and boated out to the fuselage. 2 more people, the ones in the taxi the wing had struck, were injured on the ground, but lived. Rescue crews spent days recovering bodies from the water and the sunken cabin. The cockpit voice recorder told the rest of the story. After the first engine faltered, the crew misread the situation and pulled back the wrong throttle, cutting power to the one engine that could have kept them in the air. One of the last recorded phrases from the cockpit was a realization of the mistake, seconds too late to fix it as the plane sank below the height of the buildings around it. It became one of the clearest cautionary cases in modern aviation, a reminder of how a single misidentified failure can turn a survivable problem into a fatal one. It was also the second time in 7 months that a TransAsia flight had fallen out of the sky. The previous July in 2014, another of the airline's ATR turboprops had crashed while trying to land in bad weather on Penghu Island, killing 48 of the 58 people aboard that flight. 2 hull losses and nearly 100 dead in the space of a year proved to be more than the carrier could survive. By the end of 2016, TransAsia Airways had ceased operations entirely and moved to liquidate, an airline erased in part by a disaster that ordinary drivers had filmed from a bridge without meaning to. What the dashcams added was something the flight recorders never could. The black boxes hold the numbers, the switches, the voices. The car cameras hold the image, the thing itself, an airliner full of people banking across a city highway in its final seconds, captured by drivers who had no reason to expect they were about to record a plane crash on their way to work. Those few seconds of footage went around the world within hours, and they remain some of the most widely seen images of a commercial air disaster ever caught, not from a runway camera or a news crew, but from the dashboard of a car stuck in ordinary morning traffic. It is August 12, 2015, near midnight, at the port of Tianjin in northern China, one of the largest and busiest ports in the world. In the Binhai New area, a warehouse operated by a logistics company is storing enormous quantities of hazardous chemicals, far more than it was ever supposed to hold, packed together in ways that violated the rules meant to keep them apart. A fire has broken out among the containers. Firefighters are already on the scene, working the blaze, when the chemicals inside reach the point of no return. Around the port and along the roads leading to it, dashcams are running in parked and moving cars, and several of them are pointed in roughly the right direction when it happens. What they record is a night sky that suddenly turns to daylight. A first blast lights the horizon. Then, about 30 seconds later, a second and far larger explosion tears through the storage site. An eruption so violent it registered on earthquake sensors, the shockwave rolling outward across the port and the surrounding districts. One dashcam clip in particular became one of the most shared pieces of footage from the disaster. A driver has pulled up near a gate, headlights on the road ahead, everything ordinary, when the far distance flares white. A beat passes, then the shockwave reaches the car, and the whole frame jolts, the windshield shudders, and for a moment the camera is looking straight into a wall of light and pressure that no one at the wheel could have prepared for. Other clips show the same event from other angles, cars rocking on their suspensions, debris scattering across roads, drivers flinching as the pressure wave slams past them. The second explosion involved hundreds of tons of ammonium nitrate, the same compound behind some of the deadliest industrial blasts in history, and its force was measured in hundreds of tons of TNT equivalent. It was violent enough to register on seismographs like a small earthquake, and it left a water-filled crater where the storage yard had been. It flattened everything nearby, crushing warehouses, gutting apartment blocks and hurling shipping containers and thousands of brand-new cars parked at the port like scattered toys. Rows of imported vehicles, waiting to be shipped, were reduced to burned and buckled shells, many thousands of them, ruined in a matter of seconds. The toll was staggering. 173 people were killed, and the majority of them were firefighters. The crews who had rushed in to fight the initial fire and were standing closest when the main charge went off. Nearly 800 more people were injured, many of them cut by glass blown out of buildings hundreds of meters away, the same way the Chelyabinsk shockwave had done to a Russian city 2 years earlier. Whole neighborhoods around the port were left uninhabitable. The investigation eventually traced the disaster back to an overheated batch of a volatile chemical among containers that never should have been stored the way they were, in a facility that had skirted safety rules for handling that much hazardous material so close to where people lived. It became China's deadliest industrial accident in years, and a case study in what happens when dangerous goods pile up unchecked next to a city. But the thing that carried Tianjin around the world wasn't the investigation. It was the Dashcam footage. A single driver, sitting at a gate near midnight, camera running for no reason other than habit, ended up holding one of the clearest records of the exact instant a warehouse district became a blast site. Not a security feed, not a news camera, just a car, pointed the right way at the wrong time, recording a wall of light that arrived faster than anyone inside could understand what they were seeing. It is December 9th, 2023, in Clarksville, Tennessee, a city north of Nashville near the Kentucky line, and the weather has turned dangerous fast. A powerful storm system is moving across Middle Tennessee, and the sky over Montgomery County has gone the wrong kind of dark. A tornado is on the ground, an EF3 with winds reaching about 150 miles an hour, cutting a path more than 40 miles long across the region. On the roads, ordinary Saturday traffic is still moving, and in at least one of those cars, a Dashcam is running. What that camera records is the view no one wants, a driver heading straight into it. At first, the footage looks like heavy weather and nothing more. Rain streaking the windshield, wind pushing at the car, the sky an ugly gray-green. Then, ahead on the road, the world starts to come apart. Debris begins crossing the frame, first small, then not. Power flashes light up the distance as the tornado tears through transformers and lines. Sudden bursts of blue-white against the dark. Trees bend past their limits. Sheet metal and branches and pieces of buildings fly across the road, and the driver keeps moving forward because there is nowhere to stop and nowhere to hide. For a stretch of seconds, the car is essentially inside it. The wind roars over the audio. The vehicle shakes and slides. Visibility collapses to almost nothing, and on the recording you can hear the driver's voice, praying out loud, asking for protection, narrating a fear that needs no explanation to anyone listening. The camera doesn't look away because it can't. It just keeps pointing forward into a churn of debris and darkness that has no clear edges, no way to tell how big it is or where it ends. And then, as fast as it closed in, it opens back up. The debris thins, the shaking eases, the road reappears through the windshield, littered but there, and the driver comes out the other side alive. The car was battered, but the person behind the wheel survived, one of the lucky ones on a day that wasn't lucky for everyone. The Clarksville tornado was part of an outbreak that killed 6 people across Middle Tennessee that afternoon and injured dozens more, with 3 of those deaths in Clarksville itself. It flattened homes, ripped roofs off businesses, and knocked out power to tens of thousands. The path it cut through Montgomery County left neighborhoods unrecognizable, the kind of damage that takes a community months and years to climb back from. What sets this footage apart from a storm chaser's is that the driver wasn't chasing anything. There was no plan to film a tornado, no intention of being anywhere near it. It was a Dashcam doing its ordinary job on an ordinary drive, and it happened to be running when the sky came down on the road. That's the thread that ties all 5 of these together, and it shows up most nakedly here, an unremarkable camera, mounted for the smallest reasons, that ends up holding a record of one of the worst moments of someone's life. The tornado moved on the way tornadoes do, indifferent to the car it had passed through, and the footage stayed behind. The driver kept it, and it spread, and now it lives online as one more piece of proof that the most disturbing things ever caught on a dashcam were almost never the things anyone set out to record. They were just what happened to be in front of the lens on the day everything went wrong. What ties these 5 together isn't the violence or the scale or even the footage itself. It's the fact that a camera happened to be running when the ordinary gave way to something none of these people saw coming. A traffic stop, a commute, a takeoff, a drive past the port at midnight, a wet Saturday on the way home. Each one recorded by a device that had no idea what it was pointed at, that couldn't warn anyone, couldn't intervene, couldn't do anything at all except keep the frame steady and let it run. And somewhere right now, in a car moving down a road like any other, a dash cam is still running, recording nothing in particular, the way it always does, until the moment it doesn't.